evening. Welcome to um, this series of videos that I'm going to be presenting for you. My name is Mike Alexander. I am originally from Swan Lake First Nation, back home in Treaty Number 1 territory. I was born and raised in Winnipeg. Moved out to British Columbia a decade ago, where I have been living ever since, currently residing in Vancouver, where I have been here for the last 4 years. And yeah, um, so my connection to my home community is a little bit strange, I suppose. I was adopted out very shortly after birth. I grew up in a non-native family um, in Winnipeg, so not in community and not with my biological parents. Um, we call that an example of the 60s scoop, um, which has made my life unique in a manner of speaking, and we can talk about that a little bit more as we go. But certainly, I'm coming to you with a bit of a story about where life has taken me and why maybe it's taken me to where it has. And I guess we can sort of start off by saying that, the 60s scoop has had an impact on my relationships to culture, to my own self-worth, and for the sake of this series of videos, my relationship with food, which is definitely worth talking about as I'm making some interesting headway on managing all of these issues and finding myself in a pretty good place to be able to kind of talk about them. We can sort of, if you want to sort of talk about my origins, we can talk about addiction to alcohol. I think I found alcohol 15 or 16 and spent the next 25 years embroiled in it. We can talk about depression, major depression. That's been a part of my life since I can remember. Went very, it was not diagnosed until a decade ago. And somewhere along the way, type 2 diabetes became part of my reality. And so all of this to say that I'm now currently on a healing journey, one that has already made my life incredibly worthwhile. I'm really enjoying the person I've become over the last few years since becoming sober, about a decade ago now. I've had an opportunity to sort of learn about how all of these things that I'm mentioning are interconnected with, my health, be it mental, physical, or spiritual. And all these things are an integral part of who anyone is. I think that the challenges that Indigenous people face in this country, at least, are quite dynamic, and it's required an awful lot of learning about resilience. I know the word's overused, maybe. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm not sure how else to describe the process of overcoming the challenges that sort of seem to risk kind of bringing us down. You know, in my case, I'm rather fortunate that, I can point to instances where I've taken matters into my own hands. I've pursued endurance training on a bike, running, or swimming, extremely, an awful lot of cardio ultimately. But in addition to becoming an endurance athlete, I've also learned an awful lot about community and its role in helping me. You know, um, I don't think that I could really be doing what I'm doing without support, without encouragement, and without, um, involvement from people in my life who really value me, who see me as, a worthwhile person, who want me to succeed, and who are invested in that success. Um, there's definitely, I think that perhaps in the past that might not have been something that I registered or wanted or felt like I deserved. And that sort of speaks a bit to this idea of self-worth, that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Um, for anyone who's been through the 60s scoop, I've, met other survivors. We all sort of talk about identity, a sense of belonging, and, self-worth being constant sort of things that really can cause us an awful lot of pain. Um, not feeling like, we belong anywhere, or that despite trying to live in two different worlds, not feeling like we belong in either. And, that can cause feelings of self-worth to be pretty low, I think. So, you know, I think I've learned that it's one thing to be sober, or it's one thing to not drink, but that isn't by itself the solution to the problem. I think it's about sort of being able to understand, how your internal landscape is shaped, and how you can kind of affect that. We make all kinds of choices in life, and we have control over many of these choices. And I think that choosing a positive mental attitude for me has been really key in opening, a conversation with myself about what my potential is, and identifying the limitations that have held me back up until this point. You know, um, I want to talk about a lifestyle overhaul. I want to talk about diabetes. I want to talk about remission from diabetes. I want to talk about GLP-1 agonists, specifically with me, Ozempic, um, how that has kind of changed things for me on a physical, excuse me, in a physical way, but also in a kind of a mental way as well. There's, I feel like one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I'm seeing the world through a lens that is newish to me. It's a good thing. Um, I'm an artist by trade, a full-time visual artist. So I think in terms of stories, um, I'm a storyteller in my culture, and the story of my survival is something that is actually ongoing. The tale hasn't been finished being told, and I think that now I'm just sort of at a place where I want to sort of summarize some of the things that have happened to me that I've learned about myself and to pass them on for others who, find themselves in a place where you're not so sure, where you're not certain, where you've got doubts, where you have questions. It's important for me to know that I'm not alone in in this journey, in this healing journey. And I want to speak with people who may feel that way. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to feel like I don't matter. I know what it's like to talk myself into the ground, saying things that aren't helpful. I think that, stories matter. You know, um, Stories of Indigenous people matter. How we survive. What did we do? What does that look like? Um, what can we share with others when it's time to pass along teachings or knowledge or encouragement? So this is going to be about type 2 diabetes, how I've managed to put myself into remission, how I've found a strength to keep me going, right? And how to kind of do more than just survive, but to do really well. So I invite you to come along on this journey. It's going to be, I think, about a 5-episode series talking about trauma, talking about food, my relationship with food and eating. I'm going to talk about movement as medicine. How we can reclaim our health. And I want to talk more about diabetes remission through the lens of Ozempic and how the importance of overcoming shame and stigma associated with diabetes, for sure, because I ultimately want to take a good look at how we can create a future in a good way for ourselves and for our communities and our families. For me, it's been about embracing hope, and I want to sort of talk about how I got to that place. I haven't always felt that way. But at this point, 10 years into recovery, I feel like at the very least, I should reflect on how it's been for me. So I definitely want to have a conversation. I don't necessarily want to talk at, you. I think that communication works best if it's both ways. So please feel free to drop me a line, ask questions, let me know about, how it's going for you. Because we all need to sort of come up with a vision for wellness for ourselves and our communities, right? We need to affirm our resilience. We need to show, the world what we're capable of. I don't see an awful lot of Indigenous people talking about diabetes on YouTube. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to kind of let you know how it is on my diabetes journey. So that's it for now. I'm looking forward to the next few episodes of this series. I hope you're stoked. Feel free to subscribe so that you can find out when the next episode goes up. Share this video with someone who you think might be interested, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Chi miigwech.